Oh.
I don't think this is a good idea. I think it's too deep. Our goal is to follow Akshayuk Pass across Baffin Island, from start to finish, from fjord to opposite fjord on the Arctic Ocean. This route is 95 kilometers of untouched tundra in the high Arctic, enclosed by mountains that rise thousands of meters from the valley floor. The summers are short and harsh, the nearest tree being around 700 kilometers away. It's a long way with 60 plus pounds on your back, so physical training was key. We had to focus on endurance and explosive strength. Legs are the most important part, but whole body workouts are preferable. Heavy loads on rough terrain don't hit just one muscle group. Unfortunately, there's no real way to mimic a trek like this at home, unless you somehow have the time to hike around the neighborhood with 60 pounds for 8 hours, multiple times a week. Rucking with 120 pounds for half an hour before work just isn't the same.
Size of the tent. I'm 5'3". That's not a great view. So 3 of my body width, mind you, but 3 of my body width side to side touching. I could fit 4 of me in here. I think it's a pretty sizable 3-person tent. It does have this nice gap away from the tent. I'll draw water away. Alright, so we're inside and it is dry. Wide from there all the way over to here.
Preparing your body for the Arctic isn't enough. Your equipment has to be completely dialed in. Bringing the wrong item or simply forgetting a piece of equipment is something the land will not forgive. When you're out of reach of civilization, it's not a good time to discover your sleeping bag isn't warm enough or your boots don't fit properly. Because Akshayuk Pass is in Auyuittuq National Park, we were not permitted to carry a firearm for protection from polar bears. The 3 of us met up in Ottawa, loaded and ready to go. Getting anywhere in the far north is both expensive and time-consuming, with layovers and delays from weather or crew changes. In Iqaluit, we met a traveler headed the same way as us.
I think it might be the Mount Thor log. I'm like flipping through all these pages and people are like, the weather is amazing, it's beautiful. And I'm in there like, we're in a blizzard, conditions farther north are unpassable, you know? I think it was Summit Lake. We were just to the north of that when the storm hit. We're gonna be stretcher cases if we try to cross that and we don't make it. My prosthetic was already broken. It was like I had 2 knees, and so basically my lower leg is dangling.
Yeah.
My hand broken, my wrist broken. Our skin had started to get a really weird texture from all the weight loss. That was weird. Most of the people that apparently die up there die from hypothermia or getting in the water. And an awful lot of them have to do with people's gear just getting wet and then not being able to dry themselves out and they get hypothermia.
The tiny airport in Pangnirtung emptied of people after the last flight of the day had landed. Our bags were nowhere to be found. If they took too long, we would not have time to finish the pass, and we would be going home empty-handed. We stayed patient that they would come the next day. With nothing else to do, we took the time to explore Pang, which has a rich history as a whaling station. Historically, the Inuit hunted in the pass, but now they mainly use it to travel between the villages of Qikiqtarjuaq and Pangnirtung in the winter. The social and infrastructure problems that plague the far north can be found in Pang. With a short airstrip and heavy fog or high winds a common occurrence, flights to Pangnirtung often never leave the ground. But after 48 hours of waiting, our equipment arrived.
Is that yours?
There it is, that's my bag.
There, that was yours, good.
Yes.
That's 2.
Yes!
That's 2 out of 3.
As we were making preparations, Steve stopped by for a visit.
In September of 2023, I hiked the Akshayuk Pass north to south. My buddy and I spent several months training for it and preparing for it. We did a lot of studying, looked at 20 years of weather reports, got an idea of what our gear selection needed to be. We prepared for the worst case scenario just in case, which was good because on the 4th day of hiking through the pass, we got 12 inches of snow in 3 hours. At first, on the northern part of the trek, we were making really good time, but once the snow hit and we lost the trail, the landscape is just so rugged and it's so huge and it's so rough that it turned into an 8-day adventure of moving through the storm, and then it came back and stung us a few days later. Our temperature range that we experienced was from the low 40s down to probably -10 or so. I'd say the worst winds we had were 30 miles an hour sustained, just guessing from the slapping sounds we were experiencing in the tent. The change in the water levels was amazing. Could really tell in the mornings that there's just a lot, because it freezes overnight. But as the day goes on, the water levels get deeper. We climbed, crawled. We basically fought for our lives for 8 days. At the end of the hike, I had broken my left hand in 3 places. I broke my right scapholunate ligament. I broke my prosthetic in 2 places. We lost about 15 pounds. We were both hypothermic and we had frostbite. Fortunately, we did not have necrosis, so we didn't lose any limbs. However, I've lost sensation in my fingertips, and I'll probably never get that back. I now have Raynaud's syndrome in my right foot. It's the only foot I got. Physically, I'll carry the injuries of the experience for the rest of my life, and which is, in a way, it's kind of comforting. It was just the most magical experience, but you're so far from any sort of, there's no rescue. It's just so rugged. You're so far out. We're about halfway, so we couldn't go back to the north because there's just, Qikiqtarjuaq is so small, and there's just really no infrastructure up there to come and get you. I figured any rescue attempt, if even feasible, would come from the south. So we chose to walk through the storm. But that's one thing that's hard to articulate to people, is just how far out you are, how remote it is, how dangerous it can be if something goes wrong. And on an expedition like this, you're expecting to work your way through your layers of preparation. And by the time we hit the peak of the storm, we had really sunk down into that safety net of our gear. So planning for the worst case scenario is what kept us alive. The sights and the sounds, the light on the glaciers above us, it lives in my dreams. Like I just can't get it out of my head, which is why we're back now. Mount Thor it's almost dizzying to look up because it looms over you. You know, it's the tallest, steepest vertical drop on Earth, 4,200 feet unbroken. You can see where the ice cap sort of rolls over the rim of the valley all around you, and you'll see that turquoise heart of the glaciers above you. It's gorgeous. The weather variability, you could have a 20-degree temperature swing in a matter of minutes. It's not a bad hike if the weather stays nice and everything goes according to plan. It's not that bad. But like I said, if something goes wrong, you're pretty screwed.
As we performed the final checks on our equipment, a rainbow formed over Pang, ending right at the docks we would depart from the next day. We took this as a favorable omen for things to come. We met our boat operator first thing in the morning. We were already 24 hours late in starting up the pass, so we left immediately. When Ernest Shackleton received the green light for his ill-fated expedition to Antarctica, a telegram arrived with a single word: proceed. We were joined by another traveler headed to the halfway point, named Kira. We reached the Ulu landing on the west side of the fjord by 10 o'clock. It's nothing more than a marker on the edge of the tidal flat. Anything resembling civilization was far behind.
You want to go first and get a video of us?
Make sure it's close enough before you put on your
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're good. All right, stepping up. Want a hand?
Maybe it'd be better for you to take my bag.
Yeah. Yeah, I can take it.
It's 67 pounds.
Yeah, I don't know how your bag ended up being heavier than mine.
We're going to say 10-12.
Yeah, 10, 12, 10, 15. All right, first steps, let's go. We had 4 kilometers of mud flat to cross, and the tide was coming in, so we made good speed. We were fresh and well rested, so the excess of 60 pounds didn't feel bad at all. The week before, 2 people had become lost on a day hike in the mountains when they failed to find their camp again. Stuck out in a cold rain for a night, they became hypothermic. They managed to get rescued the next day by signaling the passing boat operator, the only one in the area with a bear banger. Not everyone belongs out here. We were watching for their abandoned tent and equipment, but I guess the park staff had already retrieved it.
Again, gorgeous view of the valley as we come down.
All right, here we are making our first crossing for the day. Water temperature, surprisingly enough, is not cold. I don't feel cold.
I can't feel my feet. That's not even one of the real crossings. Yeah. My advice, don't go with a low-cut shoe. They don't keep out the gravel, and the cold water just cycles through. We reached Schwarzenbach Falls by evening, having pulled off a good 16 kilometers on our first day. Schwarzenbach would be our first major river crossing, but we would leave that until the AM. Alright, so day one, we made it to Schwarzenbach Falls, about 16 kilometers in.
It was a long day, but not a bad day. Like, for me, it didn't feel crazy hard. I think Algonquin felt a lot harder.
Moderately challenging, that was it, but it was great. Nothing to kill us. Good start for a day.
Everything went very smooth.
I was very excited to be on my first moraine as a geology nerd. This definitely made my day. I imagine that excitement will wear off because they're not easy to climb. I've started the day with a 67-pound pack, and I think you two are around 60.
We're both 60.
Yeah, these are big loads and stuff out there, but we're hoping that by the time we get halfway, fuel will go down, food will go down, less weight, and hopefully it'll be easier leaving the park.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Have a good night.